Do you guys remember Pitfall? This game was huge in the Atari 2600 in 1982. You know, during the dinosaur age. It was the best-selling video game of that year. It was Activision's first hit in the gaming market. The series is not well known nowadays, mainly because it doesn't have any presence. The last time the name Pitfall came into my eyes was when I did the R&R games in Call of Duty World War II. Pretty sure that was the first exposure many people got of Pitfall. A pity, one might say. The last game that came out on console was Pitfall: The Last Expedition. There was another one called the Pitfall Big Adventure, but it's a port of this game for the Wii and PC. That was part of Activision's kid-friendly Fun for All campaign. Why did they give it a different name? Maybe the name wasn't kid-friendly for the Fun for All tag of games. I don't know. The developer of these games are Edge of Reality, who started off mainly doing ports and then developed a couple of their own games. This was actually the first game they developed that wasn't a port. The last game they made before they were defunct in 2018 was Transformers: Rise of the Dark Spark, which didn't spark. But how was their first game? Wow. The game starts off in a deathmatch against a big cat, and when you defeat it, it goes into a flashback of our main character, Pitfall Harry. Wait, is his first name Pitfall? Anyways, this chibi Nathan Drake is on a plane going to South America. The plane is struck by lightning and crashes down somewhere, and everyone gets separated. Harry now has to find the rest of the crew. As Harry wakes up, I do the first thing anyone usually does when they start playing the game. Test out all the buttons. And I started doing this. Ooh, spooky hand. It's like the hand has a mind of its own. I don't know why I started doing this, but something compelled me to. I will talk about this weird hand movement later. This game is an action platformer like Banjo-Kazooie, just not as good. Platforming sections in this game are solid, they're good, controls well, I can't complain too much. Like most action platformers, you're equipped with a double jump, giving you that extra reassurance you need when making jumps. It's standard, but you know, well done platforming. If there was one thing about the platforming I didn't like much, was the vines in the game. The timing to swing back and forth on the vine was always wonky to me, and every time I played, I felt I had to relearn the timing for the swings. Almost every time I had to stop and lower myself all the way down and then start swinging, because if I jumped from anywhere but the bottom, I felt I was taking a big risk and missing my jump. It's not a huge deal, and the rest of the platforming is fun and enjoyable. But there was one section in the game where I was really frustrated with the vine. Anyways, the game world is divided into 3 sections: jungle, ice mountain, and more jungle. Levels are connected in a daisy chain-like way, with only a couple of levels having 2 or 3 extensions. In order to get to one place, you need to go back through another level. It was mostly, here's where you have to go, follow a linear path of levels, and once you get there, the game gives you a small cutscene with a hint of what you have to do. They also give the player shortcuts when they finish a mission that was a bit out of the way, which did cut down on backtracking. Something that they added that was interesting was telling you the name of the level you were going to at the entrance of it. It was very helpful, mainly because of this game's atrocious map. The map in this game doesn't make any sense. For one thing, there is no dedicated map button. You have to go into the pause menu and go into the map section. That's fine, not a big deal. But the map first goes to the world section screen, which you have to go into to view the levels in that world. Why would the menu be set up this way? The map should be zooming out. When I go into the map, it should start with the level screen and let me go back to the world screen. It just adds extra screens I have to go through just to see where I'm at. The navigation of the map is also just as bad. Pressing left can take you down and pressing right can take you left. The game has a preset level that it will move to if you hit left or right, up or down, and you have to cycle through them to get to a specific level. But it doesn't cycle in an intuitive way. I just mashed in one direction until I was lucky enough to land on the level I wanted to look at. A cursor would have made this so much easier. I feel like the game was designed as to have a hub world in the middle and then you travel to them, but then the story probably wouldn't make any sense. I don't know how this was the final design for the map. While the map design is completely bonkers, it's not a huge part of the game. You will be fine most of the time just glancing at it once in a while. Although I do like the pause menu. Whenever you press pause, Harry opens up his book looking up information. It's really neat watching him flip through pages and finding the information or menu page you were looking for. The story does have more than just going around trying to find your lost companions. We are introduced to a couple more characters like Jonathan St. Clair, who is Harry's rival, and a mystic shaman who are both trying to find the lost city of El Dorado, which has gold, hence bad people want money. It's not a very complicated story, mostly aimed at kids, and it has humor. I didn't, lord, as the youth might say, but I did chuckle. Quick Claw was probably the only character that I enjoyed and got a couple of chuckles out of me. And also, this animation. It just caught me off guard. While I was playing, I did find some cool references. For one, they let you play the original Pitfall, which is fun for like 30 seconds, I don't know. Harry also makes a reference to Indiana Jones.
Great, so now I'm a monkey. I bet this never happened to that Jones guy.
And I think the box opening is a spoof of the way they open treasures in Zelda? I'm not 100% sure. Finding your companions and helping them out unlocks new items you could use to progress in the game. Using items in the game is odd. Remember that weird hand movement? That's for using items. It requires you to use the second analog stick, or in my case, the GameCube's controller nipple. This ranges from neat like being able to use the torch and move your hand around to scare off bats and burn them, to obnoxious like having to leave up press on the C stick to use a gas mask to pass through some gas. Most of them are like the gas mask though. It's the main gimmick of the game and it's just not used in interesting ways. It doesn't really add much and just makes using items a hassle. They knew this as there is a section when they ditched this control scheme and you just use the control stick to steer the raft. And I'm glad they did because this would have been a nightmare to control with those controls. I think the worst thing is that because the C-stick was used by items, it couldn't be used for camera, which they could have used to strengthen their platforming sections. The camera is instead controlled by the shoulder buttons. Besides items, you can get Harry power-ups. There are two ways to get upgrades. One is to get it as you progress in the game, and learn it from the lost pages in the adventure book. It's so odd with a game that has magic built into the story, and the way to learn abilities like jumping higher or running faster is explained by reading one page from a book. Why not just have some magic stuff? Especially since the other way to learn other upgrades is by buying it from a shaman. It's weird that he sells you a piece of paper that he probably doesn't even understand to you. Why not have him do some magic stuff and give you the ability? There are shamans throughout the game, most of the time hidden, that sell you health upgrades, combat upgrades, and pages that help you 100% the game. The pages are really neat, especially for people who like to 100% the games. They tell you what you're missing in each level so you don't have to run around like a crazy man, trying to find stuff or look it up in a guide. The thing about the shamans is that they're a one-time use. Once you buy an upgrade from them, they disappear. Why do I have a limited amount of time that I can visit the upgrade shop? Is there enough shamans to buy every upgrade? If there are, why have a limited amount? It's an odd choice, I think. I do have to say that one thing that the game's atrocious map does that I like is telling you what item or power up you need to progress to the next area or get something. Most of the upgrades aren't really necessary, and the one I thought I had to buy was the ground slam, as is needed to get certain items and certain enemies can only be defeated with that particular move. I bought the other ones but never bothered to use them. Now, I'm not a fan of the combat in this game. There is no reward for defeating enemies. They're mainly just an obstacle that you can walk around. Why bother trying to defeat them and taking a hit for nothing? There are no slouches either. The enemies are aggressive, and if you're not careful or paying attention, the enemies will get you. It's also slow defeating enemies. One of the most common enemies has to be hit with a regular hit, and the second one has to be a crouching attack. They will not be defeated unless the second attack is a crouching attack. It really slows down the pace of the game when I had to stop, crouch, and attack. The crouching attack is just odd to me. It felt like they made it and then had to think of ways to implement it. It's barely used. Besides defeating enemies, you use the crouching kick to open certain doors. There are like 2 doors I remember you have to open in the game with a crouching kick, and it won't open in any other way. I thought I was missing something for a while. I actually had to look it up both times because I completely forgot about the crouching kick. There was nothing to indicate that a crouching kick was necessary or obvious. A regular punch looked like it could have worked. Another mechanic that the game has that's not utilized much is body possession. There's a section where you swap body with some of the enemies you see in the game, and I thought it was a really cool idea. You fought these enemies before, and you know how they play after fighting them. Sadly, this only happens 2 or 3 times, and they're just used as mini bosses. An interesting mechanic, but not really fleshed out. Maybe they could have done some puzzles, which this game doesn't have any actually. Towards the end of the game, it has a small dip in quality. The game seemed to have backtracking under control, and then they just started sending you to Timbuktu to view a cutscene, and then to Hakuna Matata to view another. The map flows became more apparent because now I needed the map. It felt like the developers saw how short the game was becoming and decided to pad it out. The game took me around 8 hours to beat. I didn't really get off the beaten path, so it might be longer if you try to do a couple of the side stuff. There is a sneaking mechanic in the game where you can lightly tilt the controller to tippy-toe around the enemies, but it's slow and not fun. I just ran past most of these sections as there's no penalty, and I got off relatively scot-free. I even ran past regular enemies since I didn't have to beat them, hence why I forgot about the crouching kick. I really didn't like one of the last missions. It's one big sneak mission, and every time you get caught, it will send you back to the beginning of the mission. It did keep your progress, and all you had to do was walk back to where you were, but that doesn't stop the sneaking mechanic from not being good. The range and the amount of noise I can make was never clear to me. Pitfall: The Last Expedition is a decent game. It has the basics of platforming and does them well, which is what this game mainly is. The story is mainly written for kids, but I did get a couple of chuckles out of me. The action part of the game is where I have questions. The C-stick user for items and that forgettable crouching kick. I feel like they made the mechanics but forgot to put them to use, or at least interesting use. All of my other complaints are small and don't really impact the game that much. If I grew up with this game, I can see myself enjoying it 100%. A game doesn't have to be in the same quality as Banjo-Kazooie to be fun. I feel like a sequel to this game could have been good. But right now, the last 2 games for the series have been mobile games, and I don't think we will see another one on consoles. Unless they make Call of Harry, The Pitfalls of War, or something like that knowing Activision. I hope you enjoyed today's video on Pitfall: The Last Expedition. If you enjoyed today's video, remember to like and subscribe, and if you have any suggestions, let me know in the comments down below. If you want to watch another action platformer on the GameCube, check out my video on Dr. Jojo. But, as always my lovely patients, I thank you so much for watching, and tune in next time.